Yakuza finger removal, also known as yubitsume, is a ritual performed to gain forgiveness after a member of his group commits an offense to someone else in his group. It involves amputating portions of one's own little finger to show sincere apology and remorse to the other. Pitch capping. Pitch capping was a brutal torture method where hot pitch or tar was poured into a conical paper cap and forced onto a victim's head. As the pitch cooled, the cap was ripped off, tearing away skin and tissue from the scalp, leading to lifelong scarring. While not typically intended to be fatal, deadly infections following this act were common. Bastinado. Bastinado is a form of punishment where the soles of the feet are beaten with a light rod, a knotted cord, or a lash. Unlike most types of flogging, it's meant to cause intense pain rather than serious injury. That said, if it's done too hard or for too long, it can leave someone unable to walk. Still, it's not usually considered deadly. Poena Cullei. In ancient Rome, people who killed their own father were punished with a brutal execution called Poena Cullei. The condemned would be sewn inside a leather sack along with a strange mix of live animals, usually a dog, a snake, a monkey, and a chicken, and then the sack was thrown into a body of water to drown them altogether. Castor oil and poop barrels. Forcing someone to drink large amounts of castor oil was a cruel method of torture. It caused intense stomach cramps and severe diarrhea, making the victim lose control of their bowels. The person would then be placed inside a human-sized barrel, where they were left to suffer until they confessed. In some cases, if they still refused to cooperate, they were left inside the barrel so long that they risked drowning in their own bodily fluids. Blowing from a gun. Blowing from a gun was a method of execution where the victim was tied to the mouth of a cannon, which was then fired, causing instant death. A 19th century British soldier once described the aftermath. The victim's head shot straight up into the air about 40 or 50 feet. The arms flew off in opposite directions and landed nearly 100 yards away, while the legs dropped to the ground beneath the cannon. It ranks lower in terms of cruelty, only because the death was immediate and likely painless. Immurement was used both as a method of execution and as a form of lifelong imprisonment. It involved confining a person in an extremely tight, enclosed space, often behind a wall, with no way to escape. If used as a death sentence, the victim would be left to slowly starve. If used as imprisonment, they would be kept alive by being fed regularly but still forced to live the rest of their life in complete isolation and confinement. Basil II's blind journey. After the Battle of Clydion, Emperor Basil II reportedly captured around 15,000 Bulgarian soldiers. To send a brutal message to their homeland, he divided the prisoners into groups of 100. In each group, 99 men were completely blinded, while the 100th was left with one eye so he could lead the others back home. When the Bulgarian ruler, Tsar Samuel, saw his soldiers returning in this horrific state, he was so shocked that he reportedly died of a heart attack on October 6, 1014. The rack. The rack was a torture device where the victim was forced to lie on a rectangular wooden frame, while their arms and legs were pulled in opposite directions. This caused excruciating pain, and often led to dislocated joints, torn ligaments, and muscle damage. It was primarily used to extract confessions or information, but if the torture continued long enough, it could result in the victim's limbs being torn from their body, ultimately leaving them to bleed to death. Choke pear. Choke pear was a metal device used for torture, designed to be inserted into the victim's mouth, rectum, or other orifices. Once inside, it could be gradually expanded using a screw mechanism, stretching the surrounding tissue to the point of severe injury or irreversible damage. Catherine's wheel. The Catherine wheel was a gruesome method of execution in which the victim's limbs were tied to a large wooden wheel. An executioner would then strike their arms and legs with a hammer or iron bar, breaking the bones in several places. After the torture, the wheel, often with the still living victim on it, was raised for public display where the person was left to die slowly from pain, exposure, or starvation. Boiling alive. Boiling alive was an excruciating method of execution where the victim was slowly lowered into a large container filled with a boiling liquid, typically oil, water, or tar. The process began with the extremities, like fingers and toes, which are packed with nerve endings and highly sensitive to pain. As the body descended, the skin, muscles, and fat would soften and begin to liquefy while the internal organs slowly cooked from the outside in. A more tortuous variation involved placing the victim into a container of room-temperature liquid, which was then gradually heated until it reached a boil. Sawing. As a method of execution, sawing involved suspending the victim upside down, which caused blood to rush to the head and kept them conscious longer. Once in position, the executioner would begin cutting the victim in half, starting at the groin and sawing upward through the body. Because of the blood flow to the brain, the victim often remained alive and aware for much of the gruesome process. Glasstration. Glasstration wasn't fatal, but it stands out for its sheer brutality. The method involved inserting a thin glass rod into a man's erect willy, then smashing it with a hammer. The glass would shatter inside, sending razor-sharp fragments tearing through the sensitive internal tissue. Blood Eagle. The Blood Eagle was a gruesome ritual execution believed to have been used by Norse warriors. In this method, the victim's ribs were sliced away from the spine and pulled outward to resemble wings. The lungs were then dragged through the gaps, creating the image of a bloody, winged figure. This brutal process caused immense pain and led to a slow, excruciating death. If you enjoyed the video, then make sure to subscribe for similar ones in the future, and comment if you want me to make second part.